Good evening, everyone. Myself, Abhijit Kaskhadikar.
Myself, Ujwala Bilsare. We welcome you all. This is a very special evening for Thane city. Today we are hosting an eminent personality, as you all already know, Shri Rajivji Malhotra. We have assembled here to learn the views of our eminent guest, Shri Rajivji Malhotra, on important topics regarding multiple issues around Hinduism, its existence, the global threats, technology, and most importantly, the forces trying to break India.
When a learned person like Shri Rajivji Malhotra, with a background of science and information technology, that too with a specialization in artificial intelligence, decides to fight for a lofty cause like Indic philosophy and culture, it is but natural that this is done with very systematic approach in a way that most established in the Western framework and the way of working. We We now welcome you all on the stage, please. Shri Rajivji Malhotra and all the dignitaries. Today we are poised to learn the nuances of his approaches, his views and advices on the current situation. Today we are poised to learn the nuances of his approaches, his views, advices on current situation, challenges and the way forward. Specifically for each one of us to be involved actively and help address these challenges in fighting those forces stealthily attaching the Hindu culture. So please accept our warm welcome. We are honored to have you today with us, and we also welcome other dignitaries, namely Mr. Ratanji Sharda, Dr. Vijay Vishwanathan. With your permission, sir, we now formally start your session by Deep Prajwalan. So I request all the dignitaries to please lighten the deep. Thank you very much, all of you. We now would like to welcome our guests and speakers, and we'll also give brief introduction. Having said this, I must say that the introduction that I'm trying to give, we are trying to give, is just a small subset of their total personality because of short of time. We are just giving some few aspects of their personality. To begin,
Miss, I had to announce something, but
Okay.
that thing is gone. Fine.
right. I would request Dr. Ashwini Bapat, representing the Kopenishwar Sanskritik Nyas, to welcome Shri Rajiv Malhotra. Rajiv ji, as we know, is a physicist and a computer scientist specializing in artificial intelligence. After successful corporate career in the US, he became an entrepreneur and ran several multinational IT companies. He then went on researching the civilizations and their engagement with technology from a historical social sciences perspective. He founded the Infinity Foundation in Princeton, USA in the year 1994. Shri Rajiv ji has conducted original research in variety of fields and has influenced many thinkers worldwide. He has disrupted the mainstream thought process among academic and non-academic intellectuals alike by providing fresh, proactive, provocative positions on Dharma and on India. Uh, I now request Shri Sanjeev Ji Brahme to welcome Dr. Vijaya Vishwanathan. She is the co-author of the Right to Write 65 stanza poem on wisdom of Bhagavad Gita on occasion of Gita Jayanti. Balkrishna Malap is himself an industrialist and active member on many social fronts and organizations. Bharat Vikas Parishad is working on connecting collaboration, service, and dedication on various aspects of Hindu culture and challenges.
Malabji, please welcome Shri Kiranji Tare, who will coordinate the conversation with Shri Rajiv Malhotra today. Kiranji is a journalist with an experience of 21 years in the field. Out of that, he has been working on national level since 16 years. He has covered court, crime, politics, social issues for prestigious publications like India Today, DNA, New Indian Express, and Midday. He also has been covering 3 states, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Goa, since a decade now. He is now functioning as a senior editor with News 9 Plus, which is India's first OTT video news magazine by TV9 network. I request Rajiv ji, Kiran ji, and Dr. Abhijit to take their seats, and Dr. Vijaya as well, to take their seats on the stage. And I request others dignitaries to please take seats in the audience.
In the meantime, I also welcome some of the dignitaries from Thane city, namely Dr. Uday Nirgudkar, Dr. Mrs. Suparna Nirgudkar, Sanjay Dhavekar, Mr. Purushottam Agwan. Wish you a warm welcome. Deliver his keynote, please. Dr. Abhijit Fadnis.
Vyaspeed, those in front of me, and brothers and sisters. From someone who was to interview Rajivji, my role has suddenly undergone a change, that of a keynote speaker. In the time allotted to me, I want to take care that I am not going to preempt the important issues which are going to be discussed as a part of the interview, which is focused on the most recent book of Rajivji, which is Snakes in the Ganga, Breaking India 2.0. And the title says it all. Snakes in the Ganga, when we enter Ganga, we don't expect snakes to be there. But now suddenly we find snakes everywhere in the most unexpected places. So that's something which is going to be focused on as a part of his interview. And then, of course, we have Dr. Ashok Rao Modak, who is chairing this session, who is also going to share his words of wisdom. So essentially, this whole conversation is focused on the challenges that we face as a civilization and as a nation, and what do we need to do to cope up with those challenges. India, and you would be threatened with permanent hellfire just because you did not follow a particular worship system. Dhutik Shama Damosteyam Shauchamindriya Nigraha Dhir Vidya Satyamakrodho Dashakam Dharma Lakshanam. Maharshi Manu defines these 10 qualities of a dharmic individual. In simple English, they are patience, forgiveness, self-control, sincerely committed to yoga, the science of discovering divinity outside and within. There was never the question of being judgmental about someone else's way of worship or shraddha. Everyone is on different multi-lifetime exploratory journeys and requires different tools in the evolutionary process of elevating consciousness. Charvaka may be relevant for someone who has still not sufficiently raised the level of consciousness to see a higher paradigm. Our rishis have created a Sanskriti wired as an open source code which can be enriched with every noble thought wherever it comes from. Ano bhadraha kratavo yantu vishvataha. And thus it remains eternal, sanatan, and yet modern and relevant. Nitya Nutan. It is time and space independent and time tested too. How old is our ancient Sanskriti? Having examined it using astronomical references and other evidences, Nilesh Nilkanta Oak points out 3 hallmark reference numbers: 7,000 years for the Mahabharata war, 14,000 years for Rama Ravana Yuddha, and minimum of 21,000 plus years for the Saraswati civilization of the Vedas. What was termed mischievously as mythology is actually our itihasa, and propagandic claims to truth are fast turning out to be just tools for politically controlling minds of masses. Ours is a civilization which examines the rigor of proclamation for its truthfulness, whether it is applied in the context of physical science or sciences as they apply to human life. Science and dharma are not divergent, but just applications in 2 different contexts. We notice today other cultures where science and religious claims are poles apart, and it is becoming hard for religious followers to prove the truth in their scriptures against the test of science. Our Shastras require the same rigor of pramanas, test of examination or evidence. Out of the pramanas as per Nyaya Darshan, it is the pratyaksha, direct observation and experience that has the most primacy. And then come anuman, deduction, upaman, simile, and only then aptavakya or shabda praman, which is out of shraddha. Questions and answers are a necessity to understand subtler aspects of our Shastras. This is in sharp contrast to many other cultures where unquestioned faith is the expectation and questioning Shruyatam dharma sarvasvam shrutva chaiva anuvratyatam atmanah pratikulani pareshanna samacharet. Not to behave with others how we would not like others to behave with us is the standard of dharma. With such a concept deeply rooted in our nation's consciousness, when we started facing barbaric attacks from Islamic invaders, our forefathers were bewildered. In ancient India, a common citizen was never impacted when the 2 kingdoms fought, as the war had to meet high standards of dharma. But with this onslaught, ordinary people's lives, temples, libraries, universities, values, all got smoked, butchered, destroyed. Attacks have changed, as Rajuji has been making us aware for last 2 decades and more. Shatrubodh is necessary and has become even more critical now. We have seen its gross and cruel expression in Kashmir in recent decades, when there was such an opportunity, and it has also become subtle when there is no such opportunity for now. Note the words, for now. Islamic invasions were followed by Christian expeditions. Scarcely do we know that the word discovery is not about just finding new land and settling there. The papal bull issued by Pope Alexander VI on May 4, 1493 stated that any land not inhabited by Christians was available to be discovered, claimed, and exploited by Christian rulers. The Spaniards discovered westward and the Portuguese did the honors eastward. What followed was butchering of local population, destruction of civilizations, occupation of the land, and in case of India, as Rajivji has been putting it, digesting the stolen knowledge as one's own. Then came the British, who used their cunning to brainwash us and ensure that we were disconnected from our ancient glorious itihasa and tradition of learning, which was available to all layers of society. They destroyed our Gurukula system and did everything to erase our respect for Sanskrit and our ancient knowledge systems. The tradition of consciously disconnecting youth from our glorious past was cunningly continued after 1947. Heroes were made out of villains and real itihasa suppressed from masses. Every effort has been made to term Sanskrit as a dead language to cut us off from our glorious past and the enormous knowledge systems that we have. Our Sanskriti, rooted in grand human values, has been at the receiving end of barbaric forces. Why should it be then at the receiving end today, even in a post-colonization period? This is a legitimate question, which I'm sure must be one of the many questions which has prompted all the dedicated, selfless efforts of Rajivji over last close to 3 decades. One answer, of course, is that the inspirations, motivations, age is unsettling the propaganda machinery of the closed systems. Their worldview is being challenged with every passing day. This realization is not leading to introspection, but rather aggression. Deception is an acceptable tool for them, and for them, conscience is dead. Also, our enormous knowledge base is suddenly available for global consumption. People are discovering an elegant ocean of knowledge which can nurture human life. In spite of physical destruction unleashed, the oral traditions have kept most literature alive. As Rajivji has been cautioning us, that destruction has now given way to distortion and digestion. Fortunately, in this information age, the shelf life of propaganda is getting shorter. However, Shatrubodh and Kshatriyata have become necessary to shorten it further. Yoga is reaching far and wide. It is helping people in their healing process and is promoting a sattvic lifestyle as compared to a lifestyle which makes people restive and restless, with rajas and tamas at their peak. No wonder then that even a country like Saudi Arabia has introduced yoga as a part of its university curriculum. The 4 Mahavakyas, Prajnanam Brahma, Ayam Atma Brahma, Aham Brahmasmi, Tattvamasi from the Vedas, which Adi Shankaracharya imbibed in ordinary Bharatiyas thousands of years ago, are suddenly relaxing people's mind, tired of post-life hell propaganda, to discover their own divine nature. We have shown the way how diversity is natural to this entire creation and how we should celebrate it. Communities which stamp out diversity are realizing that this my way or highway attitude is an invitation of ruin in the long term. Open Sanskritis such as ours celebrate different views and have a nuanced method of Purva Paksha and Uttar Paksha, a systematic way of establishing truth. Rajivji has been one of the biggest proponents of it in modern era at the international level. We have very nuanced ways of expressing the Creator. A Nirgun reality is beyond gender, but when we worship the divinity through Sagun ways, through murtis or vigrahas, we have both the masculine and the feminine forms of the divine. It is our Sanskriti that has proclaimed that women are complete and man incomplete. Women around the world see a great hope in this paradigm. The algorithmic form of Panini's Ashtadhyayi, which has codified the refined language of Sanskrit, is nurturing the intellect of Indians who are leading the world in information technology. The holistic view of life, as propounded by Ayurveda and Jyotish, the science of light, is opening up people's mind. Music, dance, art forms, selfless work, all can be ways to realize divinity, not just worship. For intellectually inclined, the Darshan Shastras and Upanishads provide enough food for thought. There is a deep bhakti parampara in our Sanskriti. There is a way for everyone. The unique social model of Samarasata across diverse communities has stood the test of 1,000 years of brutal attacks, and even now is rattling those who are busy in manufacturing narratives of class conflicts and oppression to create division in the society. India is quickly reclaiming its position in the real politic of today and is fast emerging as a very strong nation with a tremendous promise. It is not an accident that we see that our current political leadership is actively participating in our cultural renaissance. It is the pressure grounds up which is now pushing to separate propaganda from truth, selfless seva from agenda-driven NGOs. Over the last few years, our active force, our nation has shed its pacifist image and has become an active force engaging with nations on its own terms and with pride and confidence. And that is also rattling many powers who have still not shed their colonial hangover and religious aspirations. That's the reason why this book becomes absolutely relevant. To hydrogen is going to make the country Atmanirbhar and hasten the process of our Sanskriti revival too. It is clearly making enemies sit up, and we are and will experience more of these conspiracies. Shatrubodh is necessary in these challenging days, and is what the interview of Rajivji and address by Dr. Ashok Rao is going to enlighten us about. Our Sanskriti has thrived on every challenge thrown at us, and I'm sure the movement Rajivji has led from the front is creating a groundswell and a mass movement to reclaim our heritage from those who want to digest or distort it and re-establish our position as the Vishwaguru once again. We have to build an active agenda together to ensure that our ancient wisdom is available to masses and their dharma identity is nurtured. That is the surest way of channeling the latent energy which is available throughout our communities. Our collective commitment to make a contribution in building our grand narrative would be the real tribute to the efforts of Rajivji, who has been the guiding light. Unlike many other cultures, nationalism in our context does not mean an aggression on others. It is quite the opposite. Nationalism in our context is our collective responsibility of good of human race, not through propaganda or deception, but through selfless seva. We will do so not to trample upon other cultures. We never have, but as dharmic partners in their progress. We as a nation and as a society have a purpose to fulfill. It is not just our personal moksha. We have to also help other societies to see the bigger purpose of human life rather than just material exploitation of Mother Earth. We have to raise awareness of dharma principles. We are not sinners as others would like us to believe.
Welcome everyone. It's a very warm evening today. First of all, I would like to request Rajivji to talk something about his books, Snakes in the Ganga. Who are these snakes? We would like to hear from Rajivji.
Namaste. It's an honor to be before such a large audience of people who are very interested in this subject. And I thank all the organizers, especially Ratanji, who've known me for a long time. And I'm glad to be here with Vijaya, who's been fellow traveler on this journey, doing research and presenting and arguing and fighting and so on. This is the 13th book that I've written, and I have another 20 books to write. 20. Now you may think this is not possible, but most of the work has been done, but I haven't published it. So I'm working with some editors to put it together into volumes. Now, none of these books is repeating what's in the previous books. The idea is to take on a different topic. So it's important, and I'm glad that I've been asked to summarize the latest books, which are co-authored with Vijaya. The previous books, one called Breaking India, many of you might know about, talked about forces that are breaking India at the grassroots level, at the level of villagers, poor villagers who are uneducated, trying to convert them, trying to turn them into this Aryan-Dravidian divide, using Maoism and things like that, which is still going on. It hasn't stopped. But those forces did not target the elite. They did not target the top people in government or in planning commission like Niti Aayog or ministries. They did not target the sons and daughters of the rich, elite, well-educated people in the upper echelon of society. They did not target the industrialists. But the new book talks about threats which are at the top level of society. That is why what you have heard about the old issues is not what we are going to talk about. Those are old issues. But there are new issues which have not been taken note in India. They've been coming from the Western world two ways. One is through academic work that starts in Harvard and then it comes to Ashoka University, Kriya University, Godrej Labs, TIS, these kind of places, many, many others. And then it spreads to society. And the second path is through corporates. Now this will surprise you because Bombay is the headquarters of corporate people. I don't think I need this. I think it's, can you hear me? So I don't think I need this. So it will surprise you being in Bombay, which is the headquarters of the corporate India, that corporate India is now being colonized in a very different way. In fact, like the snakes are not visible in the Ganga, this particular poison is not visible to the corporate people, and I will talk to you about it. So this is important to understand what it is, without which you can't really do any Q&A. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the theoretical framework, which is new. We are not talking about Christian evangelism. That is an old framework we already know about. I haven't come to talk about that. We're not talking about, Maoism and all that in the villages. That we already know about. I'm not going to talk to you about Dravidianism. We already know about that. There are new frameworks and we need to understand them. Now you might wonder what is the importance of frameworks. Why should I worry about frameworks? So let me tell you what a framework is. If you go to a very remote part of the world where they are not scientific, if there is lightning, they don't know how to explain it. And there's this thing, suppose there's a construction going on. And then a little bit later he goes, he sees another tower. It makes no sense to him because he does not understand that this is all part of a framework called metro. So the framework you need to understand some people's behavior. Jai Shankar, our Minister of External Affairs, is very good. He reacts to some episode here and there. BBC said something negative, so he reacts. There is something in Geneva, in Switzerland, something negative going on, he reacts. There is something which the US government said about India not having a democracy and denying rights of freedom, he reacts. But he does not have a framework telling him where is all this coming from. So he is reacting one at a time, one episode at a time. This is a very serious matter. It means that there is no ability to predict. Because you don't have a framework, you can't predict. Nor can you really understand how to solve the root problem. So if you have a medical issue, and each time you go to a doctor, he just suppresses that issue, he reacts to that issue, it's okay, but he is not going to solve the root problem unless he understands what is the proper diagnosis of the issue. So the theory that we're going to talk about is a deep understanding of where these problems are coming from. Why is there so much attack on India, on the government, who's behind it, what is the goal? You need to understand the framework. And this framework takes a lot of time to explain. It is not a 10-minute job that I have been given. Without the framework, we can just keep talking about, we are great, everybody is a problem, sab log bure hain, hum achhe hain. But for that, you don't need to do new research. We knew that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 50 years ago, we knew all that. So the new discovery we've made in these books are things that did not exist on the other side. The enemy is advancing more and more. They are not doing the same thing. Their technology is different. They did not have artificial intelligence. They did not have this same kind of technological way of brainwashing people. They did not have the new theories and frameworks that we now discovered. So this is the reason for intelligent people who are interested in understanding the issues that India faces. This is why it's very important to understand what is the root problem from which all these things are happening. So since it is a short bit time only, let me just give you a summary. All of you know Marxism, generally, maybe you don't know too well, but you understand it. It deals with economic oppressor and oppressed, economic stratification, economic, not religious, not racial. In Marxism, it's not about race or religion, it's about economic haves and have-nots. Now, you would not think that United States would incorporate Marxism because it's the last place in the world that would invite Marxism. But in the last few decades, Marxism became Americanized. This is a very big thing, very big point that few people in India understand. The Americanization of Marxism by applying it to race rather than to economics. So this business of interpreting black oppression by whites with Marxist theory, and therefore saying that the structures should be dismantled. The structures of oppression which the whites have created need to be dismantled is Marxism, but instead of economics, it's applied to race. And this became known as critical race theory, which is a very big thing in America. It's tearing the country apart between the extreme left and the extreme right, and very little middle way left. And this is also called wokeism. Now, why is this important? Because the second story. The first is the Americanization of Marxism. The second story affects India. The second story is the Indianization of race. The Indianization of race. We don't have concept of race. We have concept of jati, which is very different than race. Race, you know, the blacks came from a different continent than the whites. You can tell who's which race. But jati is, we're all Indians. All the jatis are from here only. They look the same, they eat the same. So the imposition of race onto jati is the new thing, which people here are not understanding very much, but it is spreading like wildfire. Dalits are the blacks of India, and non-Dalits are the whites of India, and caste is like racism. This is the new critical caste theory. It's come out of Harvard. It's a very big deal. It's spread like wildfire. It's in India. Your Supreme Court Chief Justice quotes it. Chandrachud quotes this. He quotes Harvard people. He mentions them by name. He talks about critical race theory. He applies it to caste. He applies it to Dalits. He talks about reparations. He talks about dismantling old structures. All the Marxism applied to critical race theory now being applied to critical caste theory is in the Supreme Court, so you cannot say it does not affect us. You cannot say वहाँ की बात है, आप लोग वहाँ कर रहे हैं, हमको क्या? You have to worry about it. This critical caste theory coming out of Harvard has also been applied to IITs. So we have a book here called Battle for IITs. It's available there, Battle for IITs. And Battle for IITs basically says how the Harvard people have attacked IIT and all engineering colleges as caste privilege. That this is basically perpetuating caste privilege, and what is called merit is not really merit, it's a sham. In the name of merit, they are promoting upper caste and suppressing Dalits. This is their logic. Now we know it's not true, but when Harvard says it, Harvard University Press publishes it, people believe it. And it has gone around the world. It is part of the Harvard curriculum. It's part of the curriculum in all the big universities in the United States and in India. You go to TIS and you will find it full of that. You go to many places in IIT Bombay, you will find that. In the Humanities and Social Science Department, you will find it there. So it's not just JNU that we keep talking about. In fact, JNU has cleaned up quite a bit in recent years, but this is pervasive throughout Indian education. So this business has now resulted in lawsuits in Silicon Valley against companies like Cisco, where a lot of Indian tech workers are employed, that these tech workers are bringing caste racism from India. These tech workers are bringing casteism and racism from India, and now there is a prejudice against Dalits and minorities in United States by these Brahmins. So the idea is, so there's lawsuit against a Brahmin in Cisco that he is oppressing lower caste people in Cisco. And of course, Cisco has to defend it. So this has become a very big thing throughout the United States. Not only tech workers in Silicon Valley, but people in the auto industry, people in pharmaceutical, people in financial industry, also World Bank, United Nations. Whole lot of organizations in the United States are now into this business of caste sensitivity training. Everybody is being asked to learn about caste and why it's horrible, and Hindus have caste. So they've basically targeted India and Hindus as a topic of very hard kind of social injustice. These are the people bringing bad social structures into United States. They should be stopped, they should be curtailed. There are some people calling for caste quotas for H-1B visa, for the visa from here. So you see, this is becomes spread, and people here don't want to know, don't care to know, and we want them to know. So we don't want to talk about normal old purani baat, kya hai dharma, kya great hai. We want to tell you what people here have not wanted to understand, because it is very important to understand. Now, these policies that the American multinationals are incorporating in their, is called DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion. Under that name in the HR department, they are bringing these kind of policies. And those companies are now going to start implementing these policies in their Indian subsidiaries. So all these Microsoft India, Google India, Facebook India, all the Indian subsidiaries, plus TCS, which is outsourcing, Americans will require that you have to comply with our laws on caste. American laws on caste will apply to India, not Indian laws on caste. American laws on caste, which are about racism, equating caste as racism is their law on caste. Those laws on caste through the American multinationals are coming to India. And not just tech, but all the industries. And so this is coming also through human rights. It's coming in the European Union. So this expansion of American racial problems, exporting them over to other countries, India is the main target. India is the main target. Now, another very big story in this book is that Bombay industrialists are funding this research at Harvard. Mahindra Humanities Center. Mr. Mahindra is a nice man. I've met him once or twice. I have no personal argument. But in his name and with his money is this Mahindra Humanities Center at Harvard, whose director, with that business card called Mahindra's Humanities Center Director, is one of the worst scholars in the world in terms of attacking Hinduism, India, attacking India's democracy, attacking the legitimacy of India as a nation state. He's right there. And either Mr. Mahindra doesn't know or he doesn't want to know. But whatever it is, it's a disgrace, because an industrialist should know what is happening with his money, especially if it violates his own values. There is a Lakshmi Mittal and Family Institute for South Asia Studies at Harvard, which is promoting conferences, and in these conferences come Khalistanis, come Kashmir separatists, come all kind of people, so-called freedom of this kind of social justice type people, and they're attacking India. There is a Ajay Piramal group there in Harvard. There is Tata's, there is Bajaj, there are many, and we've named them. There is a separate chapter on Mahindra Center, a separate chapter on Lakshmi Mittal, a separate chapter on Ajay Piramal, and so on in this book. And we invite them to come and discuss with us. We would like them to come and discuss with us. They have not wanted to so far. We've tried for quite some time, and we continue trying. Ratanji has been trying also to see if we can have a meeting with them. So whatever the reasons might be, the end result of what they are doing is not happy and not friendly for India. This is a very big story. This story should come out rather than some old type of old issues. Do you know one of the worst scholars in the Western world attacking Hindu Dharma, Hinduism, Saffronism, Hindutva, is a Professor Hanson. That's his name, Professor Hanson. And you know what is his official title? Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani Professor at Stanford. That's his title. It's Reliance money, Mukesh Ambani money, and his father's name being used by a professor who publishes the most nonsensical stuff about India. It's public. It's not like I'm saying something. उनके website पर है, उनकी पुस्तकों में है. You can download this. We've given you the evidence. We can show you. Just Google Hanson and Dhirubhai Ambani, Reliance Dhirubhai Ambani professor, and you will see his website. Then you start looking at his books and his articles. Go and Google his articles. You will see such venom towards our culture. Now, this is important for you to know. I mean, we could keep sitting here talking about the same old thing that we are, you know, the great and we everybody else, ye wo plana. But aajkal jo yudh hai, it has become like this. You have to fight the Kurukshetra in its current state, not how the Kurukshetra was. Kurukshetra is not static. The enemy is not sitting still. They have now infiltrated the government. Some of these people have now infiltrated Niti Aayog. We are mentioning their names. And a lot of the American consultants are bringing in certain standards of social justice. When they say social justice, it should raise a red flag. Social justice according to whom? According to us, we have a certain society. Our society, Vasudeva Kutumbakam, how you do social justice is our way. It is not their idea of social justice. So their idea of social justice is coming in through Ernst & Young, Deloitte, PricewaterhouseCoopers, McKinsey, and these are the big shots that come to Bombay, and all of you guys from the corporate sector invite them, and they are wow, 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 whatever they say is like Bhagwan. But you guys have not done your due diligence, you have not done the Purva Paksha, which our tradition says you have to do in order to understand what exactly they are promoting. So this is a long subject. I want to take questions from the audience because I don't want to focus on premeditated questions that are not relevant to this topic. This is what we've discovered. This is a discovery. We made a discovery and we want to share this discovery with you. Now I think I would like to request Vijaya to complete the story because Vijaya knows how this is affecting India, how all this starting in the United States has entered India. So Vijaya, please start.
Namaste and thank you for having us. Quickly, what I want to tell you is it's all pervasive in India. In fact, Fadnas ji talked about moving from hydrocarbon to hydrogen, but in the name of sustainability and environmental sustainability, you have a lot of these critical race theory ideas coming into the corporate world, coming into NGOs, coming into the government, right? So, first of all, let's talk about educational institutions. The new education policy has brought in has opened the floodgates for foreign institutions to set up shop. The reason being that there are lots of Indians who are spending thousands of dollars to send their children overseas. And so if we invite foreign universities to come here and set up shop, then the foreign exchange doesn't go out and they can do this right in the motherland. But the problem is liberal arts universities are coming. We have to first find out what does liberal arts mean. Like everything that the left puts out, there's nothing liberal about liberal arts. There is nothing, when you have DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's nothing about diversity. It just means a diversity of a certain kind. And equity is not equality, although it sounds the same. And inclusion means including some people by excluding some others. So the definition is very, very important when you look at these sorts of nice sounding words that you see in corporate jargon and that you see overall in the newspapers like sustainability 2030, UNESCO's 2030, the UN's 2030 agenda on sustainability. So lots of rubbish is hidden inside this. These are breaking India forces hidden inside this. So there's the last part of the book is about these big organizations like World Economic Forum, the United Nations. The long and short of it would be that we should scrutinize these relationships and perhaps even divorce our connections with the United Nations. So that's the last part. But getting back to education, so we have the education policy where we're bringing in these liberal arts colleges. They're going to be teaching Western social sciences, like Rajiv ji said. So we're going to be having a force multiplier of bringing Western universities teaching. They have no rules like our local institutions, so they can charge any amount of fee, they can do anything, they can teach anything, they have total freedom. And compared to UGC norms imposed on local institutions. So that's number one, it's not a fair level playing field. And secondly, Western social sciences are going to be taught. Now, to give a glimpse of what Western social sciences entails, we detail a whole section on Ashoka University. It is sort of the premium social liberal arts university. It considers itself the Harvard of India. And if we look at 5 different departments very briefly in the book, because we had so much research and we wanted to give you a snapshot of what this entails. So quickly, I will just go through Ashoka so that you understand what this entails. So Ashoka has a China Studies program. The China Studies program has lots of links to the CCP and China. And this is China's way of educating Indian scholars on how China should be viewed. And Ashoka is the distribution channel. It brings in scholars from Jadavpur University, Somaya College, Christ College in Bangalore, all kinds of other universities in the south, and channels them to Ashoka and sends them over to China. Now, the same Ashoka University had a conference in China. It was called the Shanghai Meritocracy Workshop. It was a collaboration between Harvard University, Ashoka University, and it was held in China. This was talking about meritocracy in the past and in the present. Of course, the Chinese are very proud of their history of meritocracy and their current state of meritocracy and how they excel in all fields. Whereas scholars from Ashoka talked about how meritocracy is born out of caste, it came from the privileged caste, and spun it in a way that demeaned India. And essentially, they said meritocracy was a sham and we should dismantle it. So this same idea is what has gone into the research on the IITs. And the research on the IIT is also a Harvard idea, but it started in 2010 when, with the French government. So this book also shows you some of these national security issues that India is having. The Ministry of External Affairs of France is actively funding a whole project in social sciences to study Indian engineering education. So this is not about improving technology or in Indian education in the engineering field, but it is to study from a sociology standpoint. And this is where they bring in ideas of caste as capital. Yeah, a Pierre Bourdieu's idea. So the first mapping of Western social sciences was done around 2010 or 12, around that time frame, with Delhi University. They trained a lot of Indian scholars and had a conference to map Pierre Bourdieu's idea of culture as capital and made culture as caste in the Indian context. And so caste as social capital was born. And of course, later, Harvard University hijacked the idea and then applied critical race theory. And lo and behold, now we are at the position where the IITs are under attack. They want to dismantle the IITs. And we're all scrambling because all the stakeholders are affected. The students, they want to get out of the JEE exams because they think that's casteist. The upper castes have devised this so-called merit, which is very virtue sounding. That's what they say, and they want to get rid of all the entrance exam. The Supreme Court justice also seems to be aligned with that idea, and then it affects the professors and the hiring of professors to teach the students, because the professors are considered casteist, and of course alumni, like Rajiv ji said, Equality Labs, and there are other NGOs that are going after the alumni of IIT, saying that they are practicing caste bias in the workplace. So this is a real problem, it's happening. So when you get to Ashoka University, gender studies department is also bringing in the name of critical race theory, it's bringing in gender ideology, queer theory, you know, these sorts of radical gender theory into the curriculum. For example, they think pornography is a good idea in education. Children should be exposed to pornography, believe it or not. The NCERT has such experts who claim these things as, you know, experts advising the NCERT to make things inclusive. So this is what I mean when you hear the word inclusive, everybody is for inclusion, but these are the ideologies that are coming in, and Ashoka is of course the pioneer in this. They also want to have people who engage in deviant sexual practices and normalize them. So a parent that spends 40 lakhs for 4 years in Ashoka University, their children are learning all this. Not only that, they are becoming activists, and the worst part is this is entering the NCERT curriculum through the new education policy. So this is you know, this is the problem. So we did China studies, we did gender and sexuality studies in Ashoka. We'll briefly touch upon behavioral sciences. There's one department that wants to change the behavior of Indians because the normal Indian believes in, you know, karma and sharanagati and things like that, and they want to know how can we control and manipulate their actions using behavioral theory. So there's an AI. So there's one group that's doing that. Another group, of course, it's called, another department in Ashoka is called Trivedi Center of Political Data. They're not even about political science, they're about political data. So this is a wholesale mining of Indian elections, right, election data. And this is again a French Ministry of External Affairs funded project. And all this data on every election from the panchayat level up to the parliament level, everything is in a database hosted in some French institute. Yeah? And so this is again dangerous because we have a whole lot of data that makes India vulnerable. So I can go on about all these different departments in Ashoka, and that constitutes liberal arts. And so therefore this is very dangerous. In fact, Kriya University is you know, the Ashoka of the South, if you will. Again, very well funded by the billionaires of India. And what Kriya is doing has a partnership with MIT. One would think that a partnership with MIT would give you space technology or nuclear technology or something like that, but it's nothing about technology because one would think MIT, you know, is at the cutting edge of science and technology. But we are not getting that from MIT. In fact, a Saudi-funded project on eradicating poverty in India. That's the area they're working on. And not many know that Saudi Arabia itself has 25% of its population living under the poverty line. But here are the Saudis funding MIT to work on India's poverty, right? And so Kriya University is sort of the you know, the scholars at, you know, the outpost for MIT. And they want to, for example, one of the projects is on why are upper caste Hindu women not going to work when they get married and have a family? How do we change this? So maybe the Hindu male is patriarchal and oppressive. So these are the kinds of things that is being studied. We are not getting space technology or any of that. So the couple of liberal arts universities that have come up with Indian billionaires funding have terrible results. The last thing I want to tell you about education is that social sciences in the US itself hasn't produced results. The kids that get out of social sciences come out with debt, $250,000 debt, because that's what it takes for a social sciences 4-year education. And they don't get jobs because they have no value-added skills. Anything ending with studies, these are all sort of fake subjects with no grounding in science or rational thinking. So these are people who are not getting jobs. So before we bring in and invite these kinds of studies into India, one should ask what is the benefit? How are they doing in, you know, in their own homeland, if you will? In fact, you can look at Singapore. Singapore had a 10-year relationship with Yale University, 2014 to 24. They were smart. They had a 10-year MOU. And at the end of, in 2020, they said, this is the last year. 4 years later, we're cutting it off. 2024, they said, we don't want this Yale and US partnership anymore. It's making Singaporeans very divisive these ideologies don't sit well with our culture and our society. And therefore, thank you very much. And they're shaking hands to Yale University and saying no more of this. So this is how other countries are proactively dealing with these kinds of issues, whereas India is going, open arms, to embrace anything that comes from the West. So I think we still are colonized. We have a long way to go. And we are compromised. We are colonized and we are compromised. So with that, I will end my...
So I want to make one more point, just one more point. The points of all this breaking India stuff is coming into India through 3 points. It is not like before, villages of Tamil Nadu, Chhattisgarh, Maoists here and there, Christian missionaries. That is the Breaking India 1.0, which is also happening. But this is Breaking India 2.0, it's coming through 3 entry points. Mumbai, which was not the headquarters of the old Breaking India, but now in Breaking India 2.0, Mumbai, Delhi and Bangalore. And let me tell you what it means. Mumbai, it's the corporate sector. First, the corporate, lot of corporate people in India have been sucked into places like Harvard, Stanford, all that, and to give money there to do studies on India as if they know better. What a stupid thing. Why would you pay money to other people to study us? Our history, what is wrong with our culture, what is wrong with our society, are we democracy, not democracy, what is the index of freedom, do we have religious freedom or not? Those people are studying all these negative things about us in the social sciences. Who are they to study? Why do they have the adhikar? Why have we given them the adhikar? It is such a foolish thing to do. They should be investing that in India to study, create programs in India to study India. India should be studied in India by Indians. It should not be studied by foreign institutions who have a history of dislike and bias and all that. So this is a very stupid thing happening, that our billionaires are sucked into it. It's fashionable. Maybe they feel like they become like honorary whites, or maybe they feel like they're sitting at the table with Warren Buffett and feeling very proud. They can show off. They can tell, oh, मैं तो Harvard जा रहा हूँ. I'm going to go to Davos on Bill Gates' private jet. All kind of nonsense. They have inferiority complex, maybe. That's what they are. They want to be in the white man's world. So it's fashionable. So this is one thing. Second thing is using this connection. These foreign ideologies are coming through the corporate sector, HR department, ESG, and within the S part of ESG, S is societal, social justice. That is to do with all this caste mein problem hai, minorities ka problem hai, LGBTQ ka problem hai. Using social justice as a way to break into all of these kind of issues in India and creating new laws, new policies in the corporate sector. So the corporate sector is now a place where these foreign ideologies are well established. There are certification programs. If you want to be DEI officer, you go and take a certification program. One of these guys is teaching it, and they're teaching their point of view. Our young boys and girls are going and getting certified. They're feeling very happy कि मेरे को वहाँ से certificate मिल गया, वहाँ से certificate मिल गया. And so by certifying, by using their certificate programs to certify our people, they are putting their ideology into the corporate sector. They are developing an index. Now the latest thing is, you would be surprised to see this, there is this business freedom, Religious Freedom Business Foundation. Religious Freedom Business Foundation, an American with a deep roots in Christianity and evangelism and all of that stuff. They have come up with an index of religious freedom. And based on this index of religious freedom, which is their criteria, their questionnaire, they are evaluating all the companies to see who has more religious freedom. And they have come to India now, and they are going to have a big conference in September with Indian corporates. So Indian corporates will be told that you join us and we'll teach you about religious freedom, as if India needs to learn from them about religious freedom. So now when they have planted their people, they will be the watchdogs, they will be the monitors, they will be doing the surveillance, they will be sending reports on religious freedom, religious violation, and if somebody complains, I'm a minority, they did not allow me to do this or they did not allow me to do that, you may be Reliance, you may be Ambani, you may be Mahindra, anybody, but you will be in trouble. You will be on the scanner internationally. And you have allowed this to happen. You have been foolish to allow those people to come and set up a base in your company right in the HR department, and without checking out what exactly they're trying to do, what they have done in other countries. And so this is like inviting the East India Company to come and set up headquarters. कि हमारे कंट्री में, हमारे देश में आके आप हेडक्वार्टर लगा दो क्योंकि आपको ज़्यादा पता है. This is the new civilizing mission. It used to be East India Company coming and saying we'll civilize you. That is why we are here. Now it is the new American civilizing mission. Our corporates have entered this field in the last 5-8 years in a very big way, and they don't want to admit it because it's maybe too late, maybe too embarrassing. So we are in trouble. Number 2 is Delhi. In the Niti Aayog, in the Ministry of Education, she mentioned about the NEP policy. I know there is a data privacy, huge issue about data privacy. This book on artificial intelligence and the future of power, let me see if I can get it. This is available there, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Power. This talks about how vulnerable we are to these new platforms that are coming into India, by foreign platforms for artificial intelligence, gathering data, doing surveillance, chat GPT, these search engines, all these, how much data they are gathering. So the data privacy in many countries is a policy which is meant to stop that. But in India, the data privacy laws have not been passed, but the drafts have been written by these foreign consultants. We are supposed to protect ourselves from them, but they are drafting the laws. The reason they are drafting the laws is because our Niti Aayog and other people are not that able to think independently. They are too much in the pocket, they're too much in the eating out of the hands of foreign consultants. So what you do, if you are a ministry, you hire some foreign consultant, they come and write you nice fancy charts, diagrams and whatnot. And because the foreign consultants send an Indian, they always send an Indian with a Hindu name, our people think he's one of us. The point is, as an individual, he's one of us, but he's working for them. He's working for them. I mean, the zamindars were working for the British. So, this is very silly. We think that just because an Indian comes, just because it's Sundar Pichai is working for Google. He's an Indian, he can come and do all the dance, and whatnot, but his loyalty and is to his company. He's working for them, there's no doubt about that. He would never deny that. So we are being sold out to American consultants, indexes measuring us, people writing our policies for us, because our people do not have the brains or intelligence or whatever it is. I'm surprised because we're an intelligent society. So that's the second point of entry. Third is Bangalore. Bangalore, there are organizations, there's an American organization called Omidyar. You might never even heard of it. You heard of George Soros. Many of you heard of George Soros and what kind of problem he's creating in India. But Omidyar has more billions, half the age, very tech savvy, and he is worse than George Soros. He's George Soros 2.0, and he's bringing that through investments in in Bangalore, investments in technology, in startups, artificial intelligence type, new technology, and he's got $500 million invested in India, and nobody has put him on the scanner as of now. So this is an entry of and they are into youth empowerment for social justice. So they, on the one hand, they're writing software to go and help some villages or whatever, but then the message is that the idea is to promote social justice, which should be a red flag. Whenever you see some foreigner trying to teach you social justice or religious freedom, you should say, aha, I better be careful, you see. So these are the three main points of entry which were not there before. 5-10 years ago, we could not have said that these things have become are so serious, but today they're very serious. And we've come all the way to Bombay, not to talk about old problems that you already know about, but to alert you to something new, which the elites of Bombay are in denial, and you, the arms Admi, the Samaj, have to do something about it. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Rajivji and Vijayji, for enlightening us on these aspects of hidden snakes, Thank you very much. I would like to know from you, from a common person's point of view, that how to identify these hidden snakes, right? You're talking about the hidden snakes. They are breached the corporate sector, they have breached the education sector, Everybody here, almost 90% of people here, they are working in the corporate sector. If I want to know who is a hidden snake in my office, how do I identify it? First, the second thing, you are talking about Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. In Mumbai, we are sitting in Thane, just 3 kilometers from here. There was a person arrested in a plot to kill the Prime Minister. In India, we call them as urban Naxalites. Everybody knows about this term, urban Naxalites. So how these urban Naxalites has to be contained? What are the remedies for that? And how do you identify them? What are the signs for them?
So what you look for is you should go to your corporate HR department and ask for what is your policy on DEI, diversity, equity and inclusion. Send it to me or Vijaya, we'll give you an analysis of it. So that is one of the main windows through which they are bringing in their ideology, because they're certifying these people. And it sounds very nice, diversity, but you know, who is there? Who are there to teach our diversity? India is the most diverse society in the history of the world. We have more diversity of languages and different ways of praying and ethnicities and in all kind of ways. You know, in every respect, India is the most diverse country there is. So how are they going to come and teach us diversity into the corporate sector? And then when we talk about equity, you know, in terms of equal opportunity, equality, we have that. We are offering that. And in terms of inclusion, which means you include people, our society has that. Now, I know we have social problems. I know we have discrimination. I know we have caste oppression and all kind of things, but so does everybody else. It's not like they've reached a perfect society and they can teach us and export to us. We have our solutions, they have their solutions. We have our problems and we've also tried to solve them, and we are making progress. So, you know, these are things that are domestic. Social justice is domestic. It's not the job of somebody else to interfere and give us a rating on the index. If your rating is low on DEI, you will not get investments. You will not get equity investments, debt investments in the social markets, in the financial markets. So we are being sucked into a whole web where somebody else will have the danda with an index and saying, "Aap aise kariye, otherwise your rating will go down and your share price will go down." This is a serious problem that we are facing.
Can I just add one more thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
When you make investments in the stock market, you have to ask, what are you investing in? Because the old way used to be that you invest 100 rupees for maximization of profit under the country's laws. But now with ESG coming in, the share price is based on not only the profit that they make, but also environmental sustenance, social justice, and governance. So you need to say that I'm against ESG, I just want a profit, I do not want any of this other stuff. Today we had Silicon Valley Bank in California that went under. And guess what? They had a fantastic ESG score. And as of 3 days ago, their female corporate leaders were talking about female empowerment in the bank. So they were virtue signaling, they went on a ski trip and said, here are the female bankers. And all that is fine. I'm a woman and I support women in the workplace and all of that. But you cannot lose the mission. Can you imagine if you feminize the military, what happens? Right? I wouldn't want to be in a country that, you know, that is feminizing military just because they're virtue signaling that they're inclusive by bringing women. I want the best person guarding the country. So we have to ask these tough questions in the money that we invest. So if there is a DI, an ESG component, you should call your fund manager and say, I want a fund without ESG ratings. Can I get a fund like that? So these are important things to ask. So when you see ESG, DEI, please question.
Ma'am, one more question related to the same point. You are saying that the entire world is conspiring against India to break India.
No, not the entire. We didn't say that.
Mostly. I would say mostly. Why the people outside India want to break India, which is most populated, which is an underdeveloped country, which is a poor country? Why they want to break India? What are their interests?
So firstly, it is not targeting only India. Every civilization is competing against each other. The Romans were competing against the Greeks. The Roman-Greek rivalry is very old. The Greek, Persian empires were in conflict. The French, more recent times, the French and the British empires were in conflict. They were having wars. Today, America and China having wars. US and Russia having wars. Within the EU, there's tension between Britain and Europe. So you could argue, why is this happening? So the point is that civilizations and nation states, because we are not perfect in terms of our ego, the human ego looks for collective advantage. If I want to get ahead, I say, okay, why don't I get together with other people of my type and we compete against those other fellows who are different. So the idea of difference of civilizations turns into competition, turns into hostility, war, conflict is an old thing. Now this is just a new game. It's just a new game that you infiltrate them with ideologies. You take their people, young people, educate them on your point of view, send them back, and inside they do an inside job, loyal to you, not loyal to their own country. So the point is, India is more easy to infiltrate and penetrate than other countries. In Russia they kicked them out. In China they wouldn't be allowed, these kind of things. Japan had a wokeism that they got rid of. Israel they tried to get in and Israel kicked them out. Singapore had similar intervention. France had similar intervention and they kicked them out. So strong countries where the government is awake and the industry is very loyal to the country, they don't allow. But in our country, in the name of democracy and freedom and chalta hai and sab kuch chalega, kuch bhi kar sakte hain, in the name of that, we have a lack of strategic thinking as a nation, strategic thinking in what is in my country's interest, and a lot of selfishness. I mean, you know, when you look at Chinese students in America and compare them with Indian students in America, I did a comparison. So Chinese students, first of all, come for STEM education, science, technology, engineering, and math. They don't come to study Chinese history. They're not interested in studying the Uyghur problem. They're not going to Harvard to study the China's Uyghur problem or Tibetan problem or what is the problem with lack of democracy or politics. They're not interested in going to America and asking them about China. They're not. They just want to pick up technology and bring it back. Indians, some of them go for STEM. That's fantastic. But a lot of them go to study Indian history, to study Indian political system, to study Indian, culture. Why they need to go there? It's a very big difference between India and China. So हमारे लोगों में ये कमजोरी है. We are vulnerable because Indians are available. India is for sale because Indians are for sale. Indians are for sale. And a lot of Indians have been sold out, and therefore it is a very easy target for them because it's a huge country and so easy to come and buy out people. And nobody talking, nobody controlling it. I even asked some very senior responsible people that shouldn't there be some regulation or some guideline at least that if an Indian industrialist want to invest in setting up a school or a chair in his father's name or in his family name in a foreign country, there should be some guidelines. Now if Mahindra wanted to set up a Mahindra center to study automobile industry, I would say that's great. He will learn some technology and he has the capability to monitor and evaluate how they are doing. And if Lakshmi Mittal wanted to fund metallurgy because he is a large steel maker, it would be good for him. But what does Mahindra know about postmodernism or some social science? He knows nothing about it. So why would he set it up in a field which has nothing to do with his industry, which has nothing to do with his competence and what he knows about? Why would he do that? It's kind of silly. So we have these kind of cleavages and internal divisiveness, selfishness, you might say selfishness. So, we are vulnerable. It's not like they're targeting us. If India were together, if the Indian government and the Indian industry and Indian technocrats and so on got together and made a strategy, this is our grand narrative, we protect our grand narrative, and anything we fund has to respect our grand narrative, our values. Otherwise, we are not going to fund them. Yeah? And we are going to, and if they are violating, we will actually come together against them rather than join them. If Indians were to get together, all these countries all of these forces would fall apart. I'm telling you that. If tomorrow 2 or 3 Indian industrialists in Mumbai and the government got together, we proposed this, but it's not happening. If they were to get together and have a plan that says, okay, the 3 or 4 industrialists will pick up the phone and call the person at Harvard whom they've given 50 million or whatever they've been giving money, and tell him, stop doing this. Stop doing this about my country, my culture, my faith, because I don't like it, it doesn't fit my values, and you can't use my money. Believe me, things will change. But are we too selfish to do that? That's the point.
You pointed out that there is some kind of rot in our systems. You named Niti Aayog, you named foreign universities are allowed in India to operational. But isn't it an irony that when there is a hyper-nationalist government in the center, all these things are happening? Earlier it was not. The foreign universities are allowed by the present dispensation in the center. How do you look at it? Do we need to adapt the China model in that context?
Well, you know, the thing is, China, I mean, the thing is, we should adopt model in our self-interest, like every country is doing. So, if you want education standards to increase, instead of bringing, you know, by bringing foreign companies, foreign universities, what will, and they have no rules, like he said, the government MOU with foreign universities says, the University Grants Commission, that they can teach any subject, which means all the negative things that I've been fighting for 30 years, they will start teaching here. Yahan par it'll get worse. They can hire any professors, which means all these Audrey Truskay and Wendy Doniger and all these people I'm fighting, those kind of people will be teaching here. And they can teach, give them any salaries and offer and have any tuition, which means that the cream of the Indian faculty will be sucked in by these people. The cream, the best brains in Indian faculty will be given double, triple salary and brought there. And the best students who are coming from rich families and they can pay a lot of money will be taken there. So the elite, the next generation of Indian elite will be trained, made in India by American universities. So this is so ridiculous. Instead of saying we are Vishwa Guru, we are becoming Vishwa Chela. We are becoming Vishwa Chela. मतलब हम आपके चेले हैं, आप हमको सिखाएं, अधिकार तो हमने आपको दे दिया है. We will give you the अधिकार to come here and teach us about ourselves. What a rotten thing to do. I mean, how could you say you are hyper-nationalist when the education policy and the education system is now going more and more Americanized, less and less towards our own roots and towards our own heritage?
Your talk, you argued that the caste and race, they are separate. But India, there is a lot of discussion about the caste-based reservation policy. Do you think that that is affecting our chances? Do you think that that is given the foreign enemies, the snakes you are calling, a chance to sneak into India and try to break the India?
No, I think those who are handicapped for historical reasons need help. I support that they need help. You cannot just say, okay, no, let them just be impoverished forever. But there are ways to do it. I think you have to, if you do a study of IITians who came under quota but had less marks and artificially they came in, they have not done well, many of them drop out. So the problem is that the school has not prepared them. If the school has not prepared them, then giving them a boost in college is not correct. You have to start at kindergarten. You have to start at the lowest level of education and bring those children from any background, give them extra help if their families are poor or parents are not educated and so on. You give them extra help right from kindergarten. So basic primary education in India in these challenged communities is very poor. If the basic education institutions for such people is very shallow and very bad, then suddenly after 10, 12 years school, you suddenly say, okay, artificially I'll send you to IIT. That's stupid. I mean, that's not going to solve the problem. So we are not solving the problem at the root, which means when they're children at young age, they need help at that age.
Also, I'd like to add one more point. So we give reservation when they enter college, and that's supposed to make things great, yeah, even, and it doesn't happen. So you give reservation again at the job level, and that's okay, supposed to somehow make the playing field equal, but even that's not happening. So you give promotions. So this goes on. So anyone with a little bit of sense will see that reservations are actually not working. And some of these suicides that we see is happening because we are putting young children in a situation which is like a pressure cooker, and they're totally unprepared. And that's not fair to them. more than reservation. And my heart goes out to young kids who don't have the family support or the background and enter such systems and are not able to cope. And they are young. After all, they are 18, 19, 20. They are young. They do not have the capability to cope in such a system. So I think we have failed them. And instead of looking at just reservation and appeasement, we should look at what is the fundamental problem that we have. And also, we should also make them understand that engineering and medicine are not the only fields available. So these are sort of some ground level things that we should do, if we really want to uplift our poor.
So
One
I would
question-
add one more thing. Caste as a factor in determining success should be evaluated against English as a factor in determining success. I think Angreziyat gets you the job, gets you ahead in matrimonial, it gets you socially ahead, it gets you ahead in your profile. So why aren't we saying that there is an Angreziyat caste? That Angreziyat caste there should be a quota. There should be a job quota for the people who are coming from non-English speaking background. There should be some quota कि उनको इतनी % jobs मिलनी चाहिए in all these corporate sector. Non-Angreziyat, because the Angreziyat is a colonial Angreziyat that is nothing to do with what caste was. It is not Brahmins. It is not Brahmin privilege of Sanskrit, which is what the allegation is. Nobody gets a job in Mahindra because he knows Sanskrit. Nobody gets a job. But everybody gets a job based on how much English they know. So I think if you really want to profile what characteristics are giving privilege that are multi-generational, I think Angreziyat has to be one of them.
Two members of the audience, they have the same question. So, Mr. Virendra Chavan and S.H. Subramaniam. They are saying that yes, there are snakes in Ganga, but these snakes are getting energy from a big anaconda. They have named Soros and Amartya Sen to be specific. And they are asking how to deal with them. Soros is such a rich person, how a poor country like India can deal with
Yeah, so I disagree with their assessment. I think that's why we wrote this book. This assessment is 10 years old. Amartya Sen has got no clout. He's an old guy and he's fine. Soros is he's in his 80s. We pointed out the new giants, the new alligators, crocodiles in the Ganga, not just snakes, and we have named them. So the Soros के पीछे लोग लगे हुए हैं. ठीक है, Soros is a bad guy. Nobody going after Omidyar. I'm surprised. Omidyar has got more than 200 startup ventures in India, tech ventures, where he invested over $500 million. He's very proud of it. Just go to Omidyar Network and go to LinkedIn or something, go to Omidyar Network. Very beautiful. They have a meeting. They're talking about social justice, empowerment, responsible government, how to be a responsible future. All these wonderful sounding ways of infiltrating my young minds and teaching them things that are not necessarily from our cultural heritage. This is very serious.
I have one more point there. I think one is the institutions here that these snakes create, but also we should look at the United Nations, the WHO, the UNESCO organization, WEF, and these are organizations, and behind them are people like the global elites, right? There's the Gates Foundation and all these people. And they use the system of the United Nations to enter India and undermine India and bring in these ideas of critical race theory and support NGOs. Like the World Bank, Rajivji was saying about caste sensitivity training. World Bank wants to do caste sensitivity training for its employees. So these are organizations that we should actually scrutinize and actually and sever ties with these organizations, because they are irrelevant for today. For a rising India, we do not need such close ties and listen to these big international organizations. In fact, I think just last week, they are contemplating a treaty with WHO where all countries will give up all their sovereign rights and will bow to the WHO for a future pandemic. So whatever the WHO says, they're going to implicitly listen. So these are big players, and behind them are people like the Gates Foundation. So when you see the WHO or the UN, you have to look and see who's funding them.
Uh, there is a Hindu phobia we can see in the academic field all over the world. Like which you have rightly exposed uh, in the American writings, specifically if I name Wendy Dinger, you had exposed her very well. But why do you think there is so much Hindu phobia in the academic field? Why they are against Hindus? Forget about India, they are targeting Hindus only. What are the reasons behind it and how to counter that?
So we just came out 2-3 weeks ago with a book called 10 Heads of Ravan. And we are saying that Ravan got reincarnated as an intellectual. And he's got 10 heads, 10 personalities. And I'll read out who are some of these personalities. There's a separate chapter on each one of them, written by our young scholars. We are mentoring new young intellectual Kshatriyas. So the 10 heads are Romila Thapar, Sheldon Pollock, Michael Witzel, Devdutt Pattanaik, Irfan Habib, Shashi Tharoor, Audrey Truske, Ramachandra Guha, Kancha Ilaya, Wendy Doniger. So these are 10 Hindu phobic scholars, and each one of them is featured. The rules are, we are not going to insult them personally. No personal attack, no defamation, only talking about their work. Only looking at each of our writers was told you have to read what these people have written. Whoever you are targeting, you have to read what they've written. Hundreds of pages, thousands of pages, all kinds of things, and mark what you think is incorrect or biased, and then you have to reference it very exactly what they've written, where they've written, quote it exactly, and then give your uttar, Purva Paksha, Uttar Paksha. This is done in that way. Nobody is allowed to take a personal shot. So for example, you can't say that so-and-so murdered his wife, something like that. You can't say that. You cannot take something, you cannot take a personal shot. You have to talk only about their work. And this is the kind of intellectual Kshatriya we are creating.
I also want to add one small note to that. I think that's an excellent book to give youngsters who read people like Ramachandra Guha and Devdutt Pattanaik and teach them how to give a rejoinder, or what is another point of view, or the Indic point of view. And our scholars have done a great job in simplifying their language and sticking to the point and giving a rejoinder.
Since you are talking about the youngsters, I would like to take a question from a young member of the audience, Mr. Chinmay Pathak, if he's there. He's talking about the influence of social media on the youngsters. As you rightly said, the youngsters are reading Ramchandra Guha very much. But how the social media is going to going to change their views, and how to contain that, how to contain the poison?
So you see, social media is controlled by artificial intelligence algorithms. It is not human beings sitting there. It is algorithms that are rating each person, his profile, and whether he's a good person for society according to them, or bad person, how much right he should have, whether to boost his posts or shadow ban him, restrict him, or to completely deplatform him. That entire decision is being made by people sitting far away, not people who have accountability to our country or our citizens. They're sitting far away, have no accountability, and there's no recourse to go there and catch them and say you are biased, because that's how it is. So we've allowed, while there are laws against foreign controlled media, but there are none against social media. And this is very strange, very strange. Social media is far worse, far more powerful. So this algorithm now, the question is, who trains the algorithm? Who trains the algorithm? Who trains GPT? Who trains all these kind of different algorithms? These algorithms are being trained using data sets that are not very friendly to us. So for instance, if you, in the US, if you put up a post on and say swastika, it will be flagged by YouTube that this is against, this is some kind of a violation of rights and all that, because they are assuming that swastika is a Nazi symbol. But swastika, many of you might not know, is not a Nazi symbol. The Nazi symbol, which is that cross, all that funny thing, that strange thing that you've seen, that cross is called Hakenkreuz. Hakenkreuz, which means hooked a cross with a hook. That is the German language name for the Nazi symbol. It is not swastika. Only when they translated the German works, Nazi works into English, the British called it swastika because they wanted to make Indians look like you are Nazis. This is a British mischief. So our swastika has nothing to do with the Nazis. We should resist when people say, oh, you can't use swastika because it is Nazi. But the point is these algorithms have been trained on that bias, and the algorithms enforce that bias. So social media being driven by algorithms, and these algorithms are driven by training, machine learning training, which is biased. These are inherently biased. So we are getting our kids brainwashed, colonized, short attention span, not able to think for themselves, going for what is everybody's thinking. I'll also think because it is popular. ये लोग सब कह रहे हैं तो मैं भी उसमें चलूँगा, भेड़ चाल, that kind of a thing. This is very dangerous for the future mental health of our population.
Can I say one more thing? I think a few years ago, I think Mark Zuckerberg was asked about giving his kids electronics and social media, and you will find that many like Zuckerberg, many Silicon Valley tycoons do not give electronics to their children. Yeah, even video games they don't give children. So that's one thing we can all learn from the Silicon Valley tycoons who are heads of these social media companies, because they know how much damage it does to youngsters. The second thing is that I think as adults with children, I think we should stay away from social media as an example. For example, I'm not on social media because it's purely to make a statement to my children that I don't use social media, therefore I have the adhikar to tell you not to use social media.
I would say that India should develop its own platforms. Rather than geo-licensing, Google and Facebook and WhatsApp and making them more popular and giving them more market share and helping them infiltrate deep into the Indian economy and Indian society. These very rich people should have funded their own platform for India and made it more attractive, maybe with Indian languages, maybe with more Indian cultural content. They should have created like China has created its own internet. China has its own equivalent of Amazon, its own equivalent of Google, its own equivalent of Twitter and Facebook. They don't allow these American things because they realize it's a national security threat. China is very clear. They've done this for 10 years. They're not stupid, but we have not done it. And now we are saying we can't do it, it's too late, these people are so powerful.
In fact, China's gone ahead and released TikTok to the world. And TikTok in the Chinese version is a very different TikTok. It's about STEM education and learning music, classical music and things like that. Whereas the American version or the Western version or the version for the world has all these woke ideas and woke videos to ensure that Western youth get totally spoilt. So this is also another strategy of China which is on the offense.
It's a kind of cyber warfare. Psychological warfare through social media, and whoever controls social media can brainwash your people, can create a battle between one jati and another jati, one community, another community, swing your votes, swing your preference on what religion you'll follow, things of that kind, And so control of artificial intelligence and control of this new internet media is the future for recolonizing the world. And we are a very vulnerable country.
No, sir, it's about the content, I think, because India has an Indian platform like Coup, which was supposed to replace Twitter. It didn't happen. But move to the next question. Someone has asked, Dr. Sunil Deshpande wants to know about the caste system. He has quoted Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar, and I quote, "In the absence of caste system, the history and geography of this country would have been different." He wants to know what are your views on that.
Yeah, it is absolutely true. In the absence of caste system, India would have been a better place. But then he also explains that caste was not what Varna and Jati were. He also explains that. So if caste had not happened and we had Varna Jati in the original sense, India would have been socially diverse. with many communities competing, but no permanent fixture that he's upper, he's lower. People were people were people who are today considered low caste were dynasties. There was a Shudra dynasty. So you see, there's a book here called Varna Jati Caste that we just came out with. And let me show you this one, Varna Jati Caste, that just came out in the last 3 weeks. That's what this is about, the history of Varna, how in the Vedic era, how it becomes Jati, and then how relatively recently it becomes caste, and why that caste has got problems. It is not an Indian system. It is a system brought by Lord Risley. He did this census in which he made a list of all the jatis and called them castes, and forced them into a hierarchy. And he writes that many of the caste leaders do not think that they're low. They think their caste should be higher. He argues that. He says that people don't want to obey me, we are forcing them.
So one last question, because we are running out of time. But I clubbed these two questions, which I think are very important, and the audience should get answer from that. It's about Infinity Foundation. You are providing funds for setting up a study center in name of Mahatma Gandhi. But Mahatma Gandhi was a staunch supporter of.
No, we don't have a chair for Mahatma Gandhi.
You are supporting the funds.
No.
Releasing the funds for setting up the study center in name of
No. We have no program supporting Mahatma Gandhi.
Fantastic.
Yeah. We know.
The other question, many members of the audience would like to know.
Maybe you're referring to something 15, 18, 20 years ago. There was one George Mason University in USA, and he was starting a journal of non-violence or something like that. One of my friends there, I think his name was Mittal, if I'm not forget. I don't even know if he's there. And for a year, he asked us to help him, and we gave a small donation. We give to hundreds of people. We just gave him that donation. It's not like we are funding any Mahatma Gandhi chair or any of that. I call him Mohandas Gandhi. I don't call him Mahatma Gandhi for a reason.
Okay.
No disrespect. I will tell you, Mohandas Gandhi was a great man in many ways, but he was also misinformed and misguided in many ways.
I take that. The last question, many members of the audience are asking what they need to do if they want to work with your foundation.
So ours is not a grassroots, we don't have Shakha, we don't have a grassroots movement. We are a think tank, and we're looking for people with very high quality caliber of writing skills. One is very high caliber writing skills. If you've written something serious, published it, and you want to work with us. But we're also looking for filmmakers. This is something important in Bombay. We are wanting to turn some of these books into movies. I want to make a movie called Harvard Files. Harvard Files. And so I want you guys in Mumbai to help me. We'll give you the knowledge, all information we'll give you. But I want a script writer. Get me a script writer. We'll write a script, put it together, then we'll look for various resources and whatever else is needed to turn it into series. We could make series. So that's one way you could help us. Another way you could help us is help us raise some funding, because we would like to hire more people, more research people, have bigger staff, more books coming out. So we need funding. Then we need people to translate. So we have a team that does Hindi. We would love to have a team for Marathi. But don't just say, I would like to do it. The point is, have you done it before? Do you have experience? Are you willing to do it? Put in the money it takes to spend 1 or 2 years? Because it's not an easy thing to translate a book. A lot of people have the emotion. We are not looking for emotion. Are you competent? And do you have the resources to do the job? That is important. So if people are like that, we would love to talk to them.
Thank you very much, Rajivji, Vijayji. Thanks a lot. Thank you for for enlightening us how to recognize those snakes and the venom. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for a very nice session. Yeah.
बहुत बढ़िया आपने किया. Very good. Thank you so much. And we.
Thank you very much, Rajiv ji. We were forced to have it in a couple of hours, and or maybe even less than that, and it's given us a lot of food for thought and a lot of actionables. I hope that we will get into that. Uh, with this, we move to the next agenda item is to republish the book Snakes in the Ganga. We request all the dignitaries to come on the dais and do the needful. You can be. Huh? And the dais. As I said before, we wish to felicitate Shri Rajiv Malhotra for his outstanding work in the field of Indic philosophy. I request Amey Chittade to read the citation, please.
Good evening. I consider this opportunity as my honor that I've been asked to read the citation in honor of Sri Rajivji Malhotra. Respected Sri Rajiv Malhotra, your entire work has been a chronicle dedicated to reposition the prominence of Hindu culture in today's contemporary world, and hence it is indeed a moment of glory for us that you have graced our minuscule efforts. You had a trailblazing business and entrepreneur career, which is an inspiration for generations of Bharatiya youngsters. Since early days, you have shown a keen academic passion for having an in-depth understanding of Indic studies and Hindu culture. You have donated millions of dollars for academic research, particularly in the Indology domain. You were quite aghast to discover that the funding was being used for biased and agenda-driven propaganda instead of critical academic scholarships. At a young age of 44, you decided to give up your material pursuits, and like any ancient rishi, you decided to devote your life for dharma, the universal essence of human life. You were instrumental in establishing the Infinity Foundation, which supports intellectual scholarships in leading American universities for research in presenting the true interpretations of ancient Indian religions. You have spent a lifetime of rigorous persistence researching in various concepts, and with plethora of books to your credit, you have promoted the divine characteristics of Indic value systems with utmost prominence. You have been one of the first to identify and articulate new threats which are being systematically posed to our ancient civilizations, which is just revitalizing after a millennium of aggression and abuse. In spite of facing fierce criticism from the Christianity inspired Western scholars and the leftist lobby in the United States, you stood unturned and have never been affronted with fallacy in your arguments. On behalf of Thane City, we take this opportunity to felicitate you and acknowledge with deepest gratitude the great work that you have steadfastly done over last 3 decades for the renaissance of Dharma. We wish that your great work inspires generations ahead and our ancient civilization achieves the pinnacles of glory for which it was known for in the past.
We request Shri Sanjeev Ji Brahme, Shri Date, and Shri Malak to felicitate Dr. Shri Malhotra.
बरोबर ठेवा नाही तर आमच्या वाचण्यात आमच्या वाचण्यात Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Please be seated.
Please be seated. May we now request Dr. Ashok Rao Modak to deliver the valedictory address to the audiences.
Respected Rajiv ji and equally respected other dignitaries occupying the chairs on the dais, sisters and brothers sitting in the audience. Frankly speaking, I don't know how far justice I will be able to do in my speech, because after hearing Rajiv Malhotra ji and Vijaya Vishwanath ji, I think everybody of us feel enlightened, and against that particular background, I feel a bit bewildered and perplexed, and therefore kindly excuse me for the audacity on my part. When the organizers of this particular function requested me on phone that I should play the role of a chairperson in this particular function, even that time also a kind of fear gripped my mind. Nonetheless, I decided to comply with that particular invitation, and now I am standing in front of you. Let me tell you the reason why have I decided to comply with this invitation. There is a beautiful Sanskrit subhashita, Mahajanasya Samsarga, Kasya Nonnati Karaka. pushpana manusangena sutram shirasi dharyate. Actually, in this particular Subhashita, the first line puts a rhetorical question, and that question is very interesting and instructive. Does not the company of enlightened, knowledgeable persons like all of you enable a person like me to start walking on the path of progress? Kasya nonnati karaka? And the same Subhashita Karta substantiates his argument by utilizing and referring to a beautiful simile, pushpana manusangena sutram shirasi dharyate. It is the company of fresh, fragrant flowers which enables an ordinary cotton thread to reach the Shira Kamala of Bhagavan Ganesh. I thought when I would come here and I will get the company of all of you, I will not only become knowledgeable, I will also start walking on the path of progress. That particular swartha has brought me here. And I think I have really enriched myself, and therefore, Rajivji and Vijayaji, let me at the outset of my speech offer sincere thanks to both of you. Friends, before my speech, I think I am supposed to refer to the points which were raised by both the dignitaries. And the audience is definitely grateful for all the points which I already noted. One can actually say, because Rajivji has very rightly referred to the kind of psychological warfare, it is true that just like the East India Company, at present the university like Harvard University and other institutes in America are waging a psychological warfare, and I think we must express our sense of gratitude for the fact that you have made us alert about that particular thing. Shastrair hatascha ripava nahata bhavanti pragya hatascha nihata sutaram bhavanti. Do we not know? When the bodies of the enemies are beaten by weapons, the enemies are not beaten in actuality. When, however, a kind of brainwashing is done, and as Professor Vaidyanathan has written a foreword to your book Snakes in the Ganga, that particular brainwashing, that particular feeding distorted material in the brains and the minds of the Indians, that is causing a great damage to India. And after reading several books written by Rajivji, I have come to the conclusion that you are doing literally a wonderful job of awakening the people. Actually, I consider this as a kind of wokeism, Indian type wokeism, and for that reason, please accept our sincere thanks. Sir, you have very rightly pointed out that ultimately when we come across Ashoka University, I think you have spent a whole chapter on Ashoka University in that particular book. Frankly speaking, Mr. Vice Chancellor, who has of course resigned now, and the other person, Ashutosh Varshney, who was also a professor there, he has also resigned. A reader who goes through the entire chapter comes to know initially that Mehta, the Vice Chancellor of that university, was under illusion that he would definitely be able to enrich himself, to get some knowledge, to get some opportunity. finally the same gentleman realized that ultimately all the guesswork proved false. As a result of which, both Mr. Mehta as well as Varshney were constrained to resign. If that is the story, we the academicians are required to learn from that particular story how it is essential, it is necessary to be aware, to be alert, to be cautious while dealing with foreign money, foreign institutes, foreign universities. Actually speaking, when both Rajiv Malhotra ji as well as Vijaya Vishwanathan referred to three mantras: diversity, equity and inclusion. Both of you have rightly pointed out that no foreigners is required to teach us these mantras. We the Indians are required to be confident enough. अरे बाबा, भारत के जैसा देश किसी दुनिया ने देखा है क्या, जहाँ डाइवर्सिटी है, इक्विटी है, इंक्लूसिवनेस है, and therefore you have rightly articulated your anxiety that we should stop our children from going to the United States of America for understanding and for studying Indian culture, Indian history, Indian ethos and so on. I think we all share your views which you have expressed in the course of that particular argument. It is all right if our students go there and learn science, technology, engineering, mathematics. But why should we go there for understanding and studying Indian ethos, Indian culture, and Indian philosophy and Indian history, and so on? I think the audience has liked most important thing in your discourse was a reference to 10 heads of Ravanas. All these pseudo-secularists like Robila Thapar, Irfan Habib, Shashi Tharoor, Ramchandra, and so on, they are definitely playing a mischief. Let me just refer to the example of Irfan Habib. That gentleman still considers Aurangzeb as the real king of India. Should we tolerate that particular nonsense? Does he not know that in Delhi there is no longer prevailing Aurangzeb Road? It has already been replaced by APJ Abdul Kalam Road. If it is so, the time has come when we should all be alert, cautious, adequately cautious with a view to saving ourselves, saving our India, saving the sovereignty and independence of India. Having reviewed briefly whatever the audience has heard from both of you, let me explain to you the relevance of Rajiv Malhotra's thinking. Each and everybody of us likes most the fact that according to Rajiv Malhotra ji, we the academicians, we the teachers, professors in universities and colleges should stop borrowing ideologies, thoughts from abroad. Rajiv ji, you will be pleased to know that exactly 80 years before Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia has stated the same thing. And when I read the book titled Economics After Marx, written by Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia in or during the days of 1942 movement, I came across the following statement. And today I do remember the significance and the relevance of Dr. Lohia's statement, and I quote, like the team of blinker oxen in an oil press, they go on and on researching into sectional conditions with European tools and without a thought that these tools are inadequate and required to be refashioned. all of us feel immensely irritated, annoyed for the fact that although the 80 years are over, we have not yet learned that we should stop borrowing from abroad these thoughts, ideologies, and other such matters, and so on. I really feel that Rajiv Malhotra's line of thinking is immensely relevant in this background. Secondly, just let us keep aside this particular book, because ultimately this is in continuation with the former book Breaking India, which was published in 2011. And to one of the chapters I found you have added a beautiful extract from Dr. Ambedkar's speech, which he delivered on 25th November 1949. Friends, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar very rightly articulated anxiety about the infidelity and treachery on the part of certain Indians. He said that time on 25th November 1949, friends, we have become free 2 years before. I am worried. If we forget the lessons of history, if we forget that ultimately Raja Dahir and Prithviraj Chauhan were defeated not because of the superiority in intrepidity, but because of the treachery and infidelity on our part, I am afraid our freedom is in danger. That was Dr. Ambedkar who stated long back in 1949. And Rajiji, we are all grateful for the fact that you have reminded us of Dr. Ambedkar's views. Why? Because while attacking pseudo-secularists, leftists, and the person like Yengde and others, you convey to us that we have great respect for Dr. Ambedkar. You have also rightly pointed out during the course of your discussion while answering the questions raised by Kiran Tare that reservation policy needs to be continued. However, it should be supplemented by certain other policies in order to elevate the quality of the students and learners and so on. In other words, we all feel really apologetic and guilty for the fact that we Savarnas have definitely caused injustice because of Jati Pratha to all the downtrodden, destitute brothers and sisters of scheduled caste and scheduled tribe people. It does not mean that we should allow these pseudo-secularists, these leftists to disintegrate India. बहानेबाजी मत करो भाई. We, on the one hand, do accept that the hierarchy or Uchcha Nichata inherent in the Jati Pratha needs to be appended as immediately as possible on war footing. That does not mean that we should allow Fisiparians, separatists and centrifugal tendencies to take roots in India. Is it not a fact that the very Vice Chancellor of Ashoka University, Honored Afzal Guru, you have rightly pointed out in your book, I think we should all be ashamed of the fact that it was in 2016 in the campus of the Jawaharlal University, ugly slogans were raised. Afzal hum sharminda hai, tera qatil jinda hai. Instead feeling guilty, instead feeling apologetic, Pratap Bhanu Mehta, the Vice Chancellor of Ashoka University, takes pride in glorifying those slogan-giving people. Rajiv ji, I personally feel very thankful to you for the fact that you refer to this particular agony, anxiety in your mind. For that reason only, I underscore the relevance of your line of thinking at present. There is a third reason. I don't know why the whole dialogue has forgotten one significant point raised by Rajiv ji in the book Breaking India. You have predicted that too in 2011 that in the next decade or so, United States of America would realize that India needs to be strengthened. I think you had run rightly. But I was a bit shocked to know that there was no reference to that particular thing. And when I see at present how the foreign policy of India is getting unfolded itself, I find your prediction has very much proved true. Donald Trump found it essential to convey to the world that the Euro-Atlantic area has at present been replaced not by Asia-Pacific area, but by Indo-Pacific area. That indicates the significance India has achieved at present. And should we not thank our present Foreign Minister Jaishankar as well as the Prime Minister Narendra Modi for the fact that the active non-alignment is being practiced at present. How? If on the one hand we have joined Quad, we have shaken hands, we have developed friendship with Australia, Japan, America. On the other hand, probably in the same month, a kind of alliance was shaped with Israel and with United Arab Emirates, as a result of which that particular group has acquired a new name, I2, U2, India and Israel on the one hand, and United States and United Arab Emirates on the other. If we have definitely strengthened our relations with America, we continue to have friendship with Russia as well. And Rajiv ji, I definitely felt very happy when you made references in your book, in the book titled Snakes in the Ganga, that Indian government needs to be extraordinarily alert. And I quote what advice, what counsel you have given. You have stated there, don't allow any foreign power to control India. And just immediately after that, on page number 361 of your book, readers come across the following statement, and I found that particular statement is immensely important. And I quote, one has to look no further than Russia to see how even a major world power can be ostracized from the world stage overnight to such an extent that it can be denied access to basic financial infrastructure and world trade systems. I have studied Russia and Ukraine to some extent. And why I found this particular statement very important? Because when we criticize Russia for the fact that it has invaded Ukraine, it has massacred civilians also. Friends, we can't afford to forget that during the last 30 years, Americans and Europeans have also engineered color revolutions, that too in the area known as the area of influence of Soviet Union, of Russia. How can we forget that Kyrgyzstan witnessed Tulip Revolution, Ukraine witnessed Orange Revolution in 2005, and Georgia witnessed Rose Revolution? Is it not a fact that when the Russians decided to close the activities of Warsaw Pact, why should America think of extending the borders of NATO countries towards the borders of Russia? And friends, Rajiv ji has rightly pointed out that if we succumb to the pressures of Western countries, we are quite likely to suffer the same fate which Russia is facing. And I really thank you for that particular reason. In fact, time and again, both of you have referred to Omidyar. Actually, I want to invite your attention as well as the attention of the audience to the reference to Ukraine in that connection. And I read, Omidyar Network India, this is the initiative by Per Murad Omidyar. Am I right? A younger version of another billionaire, George Soros. Rajiv ji, I not only agree with you, I articulate my fear. When the billionaires take the garb of philanthropists, humanitarians, and in the name of protecting democracy, undertake all such activities, common people get befooled. They also start appreciating the people. Rajiv ji has rightly pointed out that the very billionaires, very wealthy people, if not tomorrow, day after tomorrow, will convert our democracy into plutocracy. Just as long back in 1893, Swami Vivekananda expressed the same fear while talking in America and in Great Britain. लोकशाही का थैलीशाही में रूपांतर हो सकता है. If that is so, and if that has exactly happened in the case of Ukraine, I find your particular quotation is definitely immensely relevant in that connection. And I quote, you say, it is reported that Omidyar was a major funder along with George Soros of an umbrella organization that helped create an uprising in Ukraine. This led to the overthrow of Ukrainian President Viktor Yanukovych in 2014 because he chose closer ties with Russia than with European Union. Friends, when I read the books written by Rajiv ji, particularly the book Snakes in the Ganga as well as another book titled Breaking India, I think both Rajiv ji as well as Vijaya ji are rendering a beautiful service in favor of India. Yes, we are required to be knowledgeable. We are required to understand in depth the conspiracies and the machinations of all these people which are going here in India. I also want to invite your attention to the fact that we all find in you a very powerful advocate of genuine Hinduism. It was in the book, Being Different. You have informed the readers that 3 tenets of the traditions of India, Dharma traditions of India, need to be remembered, understood, and grasped. Only in India, Narka Narayan ho sakta hai, embodied knowledge. Only in India, we find integral unity from Vyashti to Parameshti. Only in India, we find comfort with complexity or ambiguity. We don't believe in either or ism. We believe in as well as ism. When the readers come across this kind of line of thinking in your books, readers do get overwhelmed that a person residing abroad taking pride in Indian ethos. So if he is non-resident Indians, we have become non-Indian residents. That is the tragedy. And against that particular background, when the person like Rajiv Malhotra picks up the pen and tries to awaken us should we not feel immensely grateful? Should we not therefore take an opportunity to felicitate the scholar like Rajiv Malhotra? Actually, I have already told you, and you have also referred to the fact that when the Marxists and leftists have realized that the old book of Das Kapital is of no use for them, they have come out with new amendments, new adjustments. You rightly refer to Gramsci, Antonio Gramsci, an Italian thinker, who started telling if in Italy the revolution on the lines of Marxism has not taken place, the credit goes to the so-called cultural hegemony you have stated there. And it is a fact. Because the bourgeoisie in Italy decided to accommodate laborers and proletariats with them under the banner of cultural hegemony. You have also referred to Herbert Marcuse, because it is in Germany that the laborers were asked to remember that they are basically Aryans and they should therefore go on fighting Jews. And in America, all the white-skinned people have been asked to fight against blacks. If at all the dialectism as well as the thesis, antithesis and synthesis paradigm taught by Marx has been utilized in this particular way, Rajivji, I personally feel that you give due insight to the readers which they must try to grasp, they must try to understand. This story doesn't end there. You rightly point out that very unfortunately we Hindus are considered in America as oppressors, exploiters and looters. Has not the time come to teach the people that ultimately Atmanirbhar Bharat is the only answer at present required? Friends, when we find that even the Muslims are also considered as victims from the perspective, from the angle of all these so-called pseudo-secularists like Romila Thapar and so on, I think the time has come when we should take initiative and start reading our history with confidence and with new angle. Yes, we should not only stop borrowing ideas, thoughts from abroad, we should actually understand, we should actually grasp that Indian ethos is very important. Our nation is not like a European nation state. Ours is basically a civilizational state. You again and time and again point out. Forget Savarkar and Hedgewar. Even APJ Abdul Kalam also says in the book titled Ignited Minds that India had its own culture even in the pre-Islamic era. Has not the time come to inculcate that particular spirit, to imbibe that particular spirit and to give a new shape to our history? Rajivji, I just want to add one significant, important footnote to whatever discussion and dialogue all of us have heard through you. It is true that we must take due care, particularly in the field of academics. We should at the same time pay due attention to social dimension of nationalism. Thomas Piketty and Joseph Stiglitz, the two great Americans, have already done a great job by saying that this particular inequality will ultimately be horrible, that will make us victims. I think we should also learn a lot from that particular fear expressed by Piketty and Joseph Stiglitz. if at all, the hierarchy and the Ucha Nichata continues to prevail, we will give an ugly opportunity to so-called pseudo-secularists to provoke, to encourage Dalits to join centrifugal forces. The time has come when we should embrace all the downtrodden and destitute people. Why? Because there is again a beautiful Sanskrit subhashita. Eko dara pruthagriva anyonya phalabhakshina asamhata vinashyanti bharunda iva pakshina. In Sanskrit literature, bharunda is an imaginary bird. That bird is a very strange, peculiar animal, bird. It has got two heads, but one udara, one stomach. If one mouth is fortunate and lucky, the other one is unfortunate. The fortunate mouth always, by chance, gets good, sweet, fresh fruits to eat. The poor, downtrodden, destitute mouth, unfortunate mouth, goes on appealing to the fortunate one, please give me a share. And the fortunate, lucky mouth gives a typical answer, go on suffering for the crimes committed by you in your previous birth. In that connection, the so-called karma siddhanta, which is unfortunately underscored by the so-called secularists and leftists there in America, but is it not our fault that we, the wealthy people, middle class people, have just forgotten to give a share to the destitutes and downtrodden? Eko dara pruthagriva anyonya phalabhakshina. It so happens one day, the unfortunate mouth comes near a fruit which is poisonous, and that fellow is likely to eat that particular fruit. Then the tables are turned, and now the fortunate mouth starts beseeching and requesting, please don't eat, because eko daraha, stomach is one. Not only you will die along with me also. Vishnu Sarma's Panchatantra conveys to us that the unfortunate, destitute, downtrodden mouth decides to take a revenge. He eats the poisonous food. Asamhata vinashyanti bharunda iva pakshina. Friends, although Rajiv Malhotra has time and again pointed out the necessity on our part to take into account the welfare of the people residing in jhuggis and zopdis, downtrodden and destitutes, he that way underscores the relevance and the significance of the social dimension of nationalism. Please accept our thanks. I think this is the reason why all of us have decided to felicitate Rajiv Malhotra. I pray to God that he should go on writing this kind of literature with a view to awakening our people. Friends, I am sure he will listen to all of us. I have taken much of your time. Kindly excuse me and allow me to say goodbye to you.
मी बोलणार आहे ते पब्लिक मीटिंगला अशा कुठल्याही प्लॅटफॉर्मवर झालं नाही. मी बोलणार आहे. आय वॉन्ट टू अपोलॉजाइज टू द डायस, टू द पीपल अँड टू ऑफ द ऑर्गनायझर्स विथ मी. आज आपण जे फेलिसिटेट केलं डॉक्टर राजीव मल्होत्रांना, ते 3 संस्थांतर्फे केलं. वन वॉज श्री कॉर्पोरेशन सांस्कृतिक न्यास, अनदर वॉज भारत विकास परिषद, अँड थर्ड वॉज दीनदयाळ प्रेरणा केंद्र. However, while felicitating, I only presented all the सगळ्या वस्तू मीच दिल्या. That was not proper, so I want to apologize to the dais and to दाते साहेब and मलब साहेब. दाते साहेबांनी एक वस्तू आम्ही द्यायला पाहिजे होती. चुकून माझ्याकडून त्या प्लेटमध्ये आल्यानंतर माझ्याकडून तो अक्षम्य अपराध घडला असं मला वाटतं आणि मला चैन पडलं नसतं म्हणून आय वॉन्ट टू अप्लॉइज टू ऑल ऑफ यू अँड टू द डायस ऑल्सो. थँक्यू सो मच.
It was a very beautiful speech by Dr. Modak. He made us understand all the points Mr. Malhotra says very clearly. Thank you so much, Dr. Modak, for your address. With this, we come to the end of our program, but any program cannot end without the thanks. So I wish to give thanks to the people and organizations who have helped us staging this program very beautifully. We begin with extending our thanks to Shri Rajiv Malhotra for sharing his views today and having spent his valuable time. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Shri Ratan Sharda for his invaluable suggestion to host Rajiv ji in Thane city. Thank you, sir. We thank Shri Kiran Tare for enabling the conversation with Shri Rajiv Malhotra. We thank Dr. Fadnis for the keynote address. We thank Dr. Ashok Rao Modak for valedictory address. We thank ex-Mayor Thane, Shri Naresh Maskeji, for his support in helping us get this venue for the event. We thank Mrs. Prachi Dingankar of Mayor Office Thane and the Thane Municipal Corporation and its officers for helping us with this venue and infrastructure.
We also thank the management and staff of Hindu Hriday Samrat Balasaheb Thackeray Memorial. We also thank the journalists and the press covering today's program. We thank Sathya Enterprises for managing the publicity of this event and reaching out to people in a short time span. We thank Shri Alankar Desai for the superior sound system that was needed for a program of this nature. We thank Shri Sagar Joshi for the stage and sitting arrangements. We also thank Shri Santosh Joshi for refreshments and beverages. We explicitly thank Pratap Vyayam Shala and Kai Vamanrao Oak Blood Center for allowing their premises to be used for the preparation of this function and giving us their infrastructure. I'm sorry, I missed to thank Ms. Vijaya ji for joining us today and also sharing her views with us. We thank Mrs. Date in advance for the concluding recitation of complete Vande Mataram. And finally, we thank you all, the audience, for joining us for the program today and being so participative and responsive. And we are sorry that we couldn't accommodate all your questions for short of time. Last but not the least, we also thank each and every single person, institution who has helped us directly or indirectly for making this event successful. And we sincerely apologize for missing out anyone if we have. I think
one more
there's,
thing.
yeah.
Mr. Rajiv Malhotra will be available for signing the books you have purchased. After the Vande Mataram and closure of the program, he will be available on the dais for the signatures. Please do come for here.
Yeah.
You have to make a queue, form a queue.
Yeah. We request Mrs. Prajakta Date to render the complete Vande Mataram.
वन्दे मातरम् वन्दे मातरम् सुजलां सुजलां सुफलां मलयज शीतलां सस्यश्यामलां मातरं वन्दे मातरम् शुभ्रज्योत्स्नां पुलकित